Hi, I'm Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and today I'm talking to Sally Utley from Sally's Sea of Songs. Bit of a tongue twister, that one. Try and say that 10 times in the morning. She's, as said, from Sally's Sea of Songs on TPT, and she's another long-term member of the music crew. Hi, Sally, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
That's good. It's so good to see you. And I said, I really appreciate your time because what time is it for you when we're recording this?
It's a little after 6 in the evening.
Okay, so not too late, but about dinner time, tea time, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. My
Dinner will be next. We'll do dinner right after.
okay, my mother-in-law used to get it. She had different names for things, and I always got it wrong. So I thought, yeah. Anyway, we won't go there. So, Sally, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a music teacher?
So I guess I've been involved in music for a long time. When I was very young, my family was active in a church that had a really active children's choir program. And so I was in the children's choir, and that church music director taught us how to play recorder. So I started recorder at church, and that was in like third grade. So then when it came time to start band, I started on flute in fourth grade. And at that point, I wasn't thinking about music teacher at all. I was just thinking I like music, and I had a cousin who was in the marching band, and she was a twirler, and I wanted to do that.
Right.
So I knew that I needed to play an instrument if I wanted to do that. Um, so that's how I got into band, and I did play the flute and I did play well enough to keep at it until I got to high school. And I think we started marching in eighth grade. It was a small town, Oklahoma. So I'm just gonna have to throw that in. My high school was Mustang High School. So my husband likes to say I, I'm Mustang Sally. So that's I don't know if that's a claim to fame or what to call that, but that's my little inside joke. So
Oh, I
uh,
love
at,
it.
at my small school in Mustang, we started band in the eighth grade. So I got to be a twirler from the eighth grade on. And that was fine. I was a mediocre flute player and enjoying myself as a twirler. And then my family moved when I was a junior in high school to South Florida. And there was a state champion band. And I was a much larger town, and those folks could play.
Right.
They could really play their instruments. They had a wonderful band director, and um, so they did allow me. I had to try out, and I got to be a twirler with that band too. But it's in that band though that I had to start playing better and more than I had been accustomed to in my
Mm-hmm.
past. And
Mm-hmm.
at some point, halfway or so through the marching season, that we had a flute sectional, and the director says, okay, we have too many flutes, we're going to have auditions, and it's going to be such and such a date.
Yep.
So me, new person and a little bit on the shy side, I just, you know, and I said, what are we auditioning on? And they said scales. And I said, which scales?
Oh.
And I was small town girl, didn't know, I knew B flat scale, I knew C scale, probably F scale, maybe E flat. That might have been it. And I said, which scales? They said all of them, all 12 of them. And they were playing two octave scales, all 12 major scales, two octaves. And here's me. And I was just just panicking. And so it came the time for the auditions. The director says, he kind of looks and he says, well, if we have two people to volunteer to switch instruments, we don't have to have auditions.
And what did
And
you switch to?
I and nobody said anything, and I'm thinking, I know I can't pass this audition. I don't want to get kicked out of the band. I still like being a twirler. These are my only friends that I have in this place because I'm new here.
Yep.
And so we switched to French horn,
Okay.
which was a huge switch. And but there were some all-state French horn players. He just didn't have as many as he wanted.
Right.
So the band director was pretty brilliant. That we met with those all-state players at lunchtime, and they taught us how to play. Basically, there was three of us that they switched over, and and they taught us how to play. And then he placed us with each one of those experienced all-state players, one on a part, first horn, second horn, third horn, fourth horn. And then he sprinkled us newbies in between
Yep.
so that he always had all of his parts covered, and if we couldn't play the part, then we just skipped that little section and we joined in at the part. I mean, that was what we did. And we were learning, and we knew we were learning. We knew we weren't all state at that point, and that it didn't offend me in the least. So I just learned so much by being in that band that really started my journey. My family moved back to my hometown Mustang the next year, my senior year, and I now come in playing a new instrument, and I was determined, okay, there's not that many French horn players in this band, and so I got to be first chair French horn by with some extra practice, and through that band director got introduced to a college band director, and I went to college as a music major, which
Wow.
totally surprised my parents.
Wow. I just can't believe you went from flute to French horn. That's just like not, it's not even a sideways, is it? It's
No,
like
no.
sideways movement. It's just like not, flute to piccolo I could understand, but like
No, it
completely
was it was
different.
a major jump cut.
Yeah, you would just remind me as one of my colleagues, she's a string player violin, and she said when she was at uni studying, and there'd be parts like you were saying where you couldn't quite play, and her conductor would say, air violins, so they just had to pretend like they were doing it, and then they'd come back in with the part that they knew. So she said, yes, I got very good at air violins. So it's like so, okay, that's a thing because I've never done band and I've never done orchestra, so that's not my instruments and background. So I love hearing about it. But I want to ask though, can you still twirl?
Oh, barely. My fingers don't work quite as swift as they used to when I was younger, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I think I still have some batons out in the garage.
Oh, I loved watching those as a kid. Like I always wanted to be one of those, but yeah, it's not a thing here in Australia that
I was
people do
not
that.
even that good at that. I was not even that good at that, but I enjoyed it. And now looking back, I enjoyed it, and that's what's the important part, it seems to me.
Oh, for sure.
It kept me in band. It got me started with my career. So it was
Yeah.
worthwhile.
Oh, for sure. So which like as an adult, so what did you end up with? Which instrument do you now prefer, the flute or the French horn?
Yeah. So when I was in college, this is kind of a little bit of a long answer. I apologize. When I
That's
was
okay.
in college, I was the French horn major. And I
Right.
was, bottom of the line because those other people were all state French horn players, and I was not, even at that point. I had only played for 2 years. So, um, but by the time I was a junior, I had decided that I wanted to be also, I didn't want to just student teach in band. I wanted to do elementary. And so in order, whew, let me get the words out. In order to do that, I had to start being kind of they call it a double major, a
Yep.
combined major with vocal and instrumental. So I
Right.
started with vocal at that point, started voice lessons and in the university choirs and the women's choir, and then got to do the elementary methods as well as the high school band methods. So at this point in time, those instruments have kind of gone by the wayside, and I'm more of a vocalist.
Well, it's certainly more convenient being a vocalist, isn't it? You don't have to worry about bringing that instrument with you. It's
Yes,
with you
indeed.
all the time. And that's what I look at. I switched from guitar to vocals myself, like later in life. And yeah, I had someone tell me that I was only ever good enough to be a backup singer, so I didn't sing. And then it was like it's so I'm very careful about how what I say things to children, because I don't want to crush their little spirit. So mind you, I do have kids that should never sing. Not solo, put it that way.
Yeah, but don't tell them that. Yeah.
That's right. So anyway, so yes, I suppose your main instrument sort of chose you for a bit there, didn't it? So I love it.
Right.
I love it.
Yes.
So you're out of the classroom right now, aren't you? Is am I correct?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
able to retire a couple of years ago, so
Yeah.
I'm at home and trying to stay connected as much as I can with local friends and online friends and
Yeah, and look, and that's I think the beauty of online. I mean, I said I'm loving it. I'm having these conversations with everyone. So, how long were you actually teaching music in the classroom?
so that my path there also was very circuitous.
Yep. Having children, I
So
suppose, did that in the middle.
a little bit of that, yes.
Yes.
So I started out as a band director, junior high band director, assistant at the high school, helped with the color guard, which that was a natural fit. Got married. We moved twice. Moved after school started, so I didn't end up with a job. So I
Right.
worked a little bit, other jobs for a little while. Then I started working in a church, and I did children's choirs and handbell choirs and coordinated the whole music program at that church. So I did church music for quite a few years, and I did that while my kids were little. So
Yep.
that didn't count towards retirement at all.
No.
But it was very rewarding and very worthwhile. But that kept me into my elementary music because I did the children's choirs and handbell choirs was just that little bit of instrumental.
Yeah.
Something I had never, excuse me, I had never done that before. So it was a learning experience, and I really enjoyed doing that a lot. So that kept me there. And then my family moved again, and that's when I went back to public school. And from that move, we had two more moves after that. But those two I've had with the first bit of band and this last bit, I've had 30 years in the public schools.
Wow. Long time. A long time there. Yeah. 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 Oh boy. I'm not quite there. I'm at 23 years in the classroom and I started late. So I started teaching when I was 30. I did things backwards. I had children
Well,
first.
like I said, by the time we moved here to South Carolina, I was within a few months of being 40. By the time
Okay.
I got my first full-time elementary job was just a few months before I turned 40.
Right.
So I had taught band before that. And, I had 6 years worth of band total, and then I got 24 years of elementary.
Wow.
So that was, I was in some ways I was a late start with
Yep.
my elementary experience. So,
Yep.
but don't let your age that was advice that I heard. Don't let your age um stop you, whether you're young or whether you're
Yep.
uh, older,
That's right.
because how old are you going to be in 3 years if you decide to go for that 3 year degree? You're still going to be 3 years older. How old are you going to be if you don't go? You're still going to be 3 years older. Go for it. You just got to go
Exactly.
for it. You got to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing I loved, I mean, I thought I was old when I started teaching. I said I was 30. So at 31, I think it was. And I mean I wasn't. But the advantage was for me, and I'm pretty sure it would be something similar for you, is I'd already had my children and I already sort of knew what their tricks were. So I wasn't coming fresh out of uni and fresh out of in and into school, which I see a lot of, we have a very, like where I'm teaching at the moment, we have a lot of very, very young staff who just don't have that experience with children. And I suppose like, setting, as you said, you taught with in the church as well as the other things. So by the time you actually got to elementary school, it's like, no, 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 that's not happening, sweetheart. Nice try. That's not going to wash with me. So
Exactly.
yeah, you sort of have those behavior management things, I think also sort of there, even though like let's face it, we're all learning. I mean, some days I still walk out on a Friday afternoon and go, I don't know what happened. Sorry, there's a
Mine is
train going.
always Friday afternoon that happens.
Oh, look, as I've said in a few other ones, I have this lovely class, 7H they're called. And I went, I've got that's the last class I see every week. It's the last class I see every week. And yeah, by period 5 on a Friday, sorry about that train going past. It's pretty, they're pretty full on. They've had enough. And yeah, and I said, I walk out some lessons and go, well, that was a disaster.
So I have a story just like that.
Okay, please.
I don't know if I'm getting us way off track, but
That's okay.
at one point in time at my school, there was a few years, about 3 years or maybe four, I don't know, 3 years, let's say. that my school decided to do single gender classes. And they started with just fourth grade, boys and girls in separate classes, two classes of boys and two classes of girls. And then the next year they started a third grade, and then those moved up. So the next year they had third, fourth, and fifth grade, and they did that for a couple of years. Well, one year they fixed the schedule. They do the master schedule and they put a teacher's name and a grade level, and they try to keep grade bands
Yep.
so that they can have common planning, which
Yep.
is normal.
Yep.
But on Friday afternoons, in the afternoons that year, we had fifth grade, then fourth grade, then third grade. That was the order of my afternoon schedule. The little people were in the morning, the big kids were in the afternoon. And on Friday, I had the fifth grade boys, then the fourth grade boys, and then the third grade boys. Three boys class on Friday afternoon. And so what you just described, it was whew. And we had some behavior challenges in my school. That was kind of the norm
Yep.
that we're trying to overcome. I went to the office one day and I said, I've been checking. I think I have enough days. It was in the spring and it would have been a really hard day. And I said, I think I have enough days. I think I'm going to take every Friday off for the rest of the year. And the secretary looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, look at that schedule and see who I just have on every Friday. And she went, oh, how did
Mm,
they do that to you? And I said, yeah, how did they do that to me?
yeah, yeah. And
So
look,
that was
yeah,
a year and
look, I don't blame you. I would have taken that off as well. And yes, we sort of have gone off a bit track, but at the same time, this is very real. And I know I had a colleague many, many, many years ago, and we had 8 period days back then. The school I'm teaching at, we have 5 1 hour lessons, so it's actually quite nice. You get enough done. But back in the day, it was 38 minutes. And then, you can imagine 38 minutes. By the time you've actually got the kids in, done what you had to do, get them started, you're packing up, right? But this poor colleague of mine, when they did the timetable, and it was a weekly schedule. So often here in Australia in the high schools, we're on a 2 week schedule. So we have a week A, week B. So each week is different, which is good because it's not, it's like not like the every Friday. But as I said, it was a weekly schedule, and they timetabled in this person's timetable, out of the possible 16 periods in on a Monday, Tuesday, 15 of them were year 7 and 8. Just 15, like full day back to back. Like, and you can imagine, and again, same sort of things, same sort of school, a lot of challenges, a lot of behavior problems. Yeah, it broke him. It like he ended up quitting. Like it was just too much. So yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't look at the big picture things, do they? Sometimes they
a
just,
half.
yeah, yeah. Anyway,
I know,
so
I know that they see things that we don't see.
yeah,
I have to give credit for that, but sometimes they need to understand from our perspective what that, you know, we live and die by the schedule because we get a different set of kids every 38 minutes or 45 minutes or
that's right.
whatever.
Yeah,
Live and die by that schedule. So
that's right. And it's not fun. It's not fun. So it seems like when you were doing your elementary teaching, what grades were you actually primarily teaching? Like what age groups?
I primarily taught K through 5. In my last 4 years, I think they added in pre-K. So my last 4 or 5 years, I don't remember that they finally added in the pre-K, which at first I at first I went that, and in order to do that, as you can guess what I'm going to say next, they took away planning periods for us
Mm-hmm.
to put in for
Mm-hmm.
pre-K classes. They took away 2 hours worth of planning in order to teach these extra 30-minute classes. At least they were only 30-minute classes, which is more appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I fussed about that. I said, I just got to say it. You're taking away planning and giving me something extra to plan for, and I don't have them in my curriculum.
That's right.
Uh, what am I going to do about this? So they did buy me some curriculum.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they bought me First Steps, which has some plans in the back of it.
Yeah.
And I did have training. I did have MLT, early childhood training. So I could do it. I knew I could do it, but I felt like I had to speak up for myself.
Yeah.
And No, I didn't win, but I did say my piece.
Yeah.
And it turns out those pre-K babies were my absolute favorite. Like,
Yeah.
why am I teaching them all along?
Yeah. Yeah. So in like in general, you really enjoyed that younger age group. Is that what you were saying?
I did. If I
Yeah.
could have taught K through two or pre-K through two and skipped those big kids with their behavior problems, I would have
Oh,
been really happy. But and
yeah.
that's not to, I didn't have some great relationships with some of those older kids
Yeah.
too, but
Yeah.
they always presented their challenges.
Yeah, oh, I bet. And look, I mean, I've got a 2-year-old granddaughter and she just loves my ukulele. She'll come and like bang on my office door and she's like, "We're going in here, Nan." Like, come on. Not that she's saying it quite like that, but it's like, "We're coming in here, Nan." And she's pointing because my ukuleles are up on the wall and she points. And so I have to bring it down and she just like I'm playing the chords and she just strums away. She just loves it, loves it. So yeah, I just gotta love it. So, what was then, I suppose you were sort of alluding to it a little bit, but what was your favorite part about teaching music in like for those 24 years?
Uh, I even knew you'd probably ask me this question. I probably should have had a better answer already prepared. Um, well, and because you like different things with every group, but
Yep,
I think I did love putting on programs, and I tried to make them. I got better at it over the years, and to make them not so stressful. I did like putting the kids love to be on the stage,
yeah,
and they love to show off, and they do some. The thing is, the reason I ended up loving putting on programs is because they do such wonderful stuff in the class.
yes, yes,
And and really, even though I'm preparing for a program, a lot of times the very best musical moments happen inside the classroom.
yes,
They're not worried about who's looking at them,
yep,
and they're not looking out for mom and dad,
yeah,
and they're not nervous. They're just they can get into it. And some of the there we've just had I know that I've just had some really wonderful musical moments, even from the little ones,
yep,
uh, inside the classroom. And I think that's really my favorite part is just watching them see and get it and
yes,
go, whoa, that was good. And
yeah.
can we do that for our teacher? And,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And look, I must admit, I'm the same. Yeah, some days it's like, I said, period 5 on a Friday. No, thank you. But other days, you get that moment and you just see the penny drop for a kid and they suddenly get something and you like, and they realize, I can actually do this. And it's just this light bulb moment. It's just beautiful.
right. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. So, like, if you like, okay, so we sort of talked about your main instrument. So my question was going to be, can you describe a teaching approach with your main instrument? But if you've been teaching little people, I suppose you haven't really, you wouldn't be necessarily teaching them flute or French horn. So just pick an instrument that you like to teach in those elementary years, and what's your approach to it?
Okay. So, I, you
Sorry.
know, yeah, this could be wide open.
Yep,
I have had level one of ORF, so I did try to incorporate as much as I got out of that. I know I haven't had all three levels, but and we love using the ORF instruments and that process that we learn.
yep,
I love that. But I have to say that the one instrument that I discovered that I really, really, really enjoyed teaching, and I discovered it about the time that I had all those boys,
yep.
was teaching the harmonica.
Oh, really?
And really, really, I had been to an SCMEA workshop, and there was a lady from our state who did this workshop on how to teach the harmonica. And I thought, that is what my boys need. I need a hook. The
Yeah,
girls, those in those single gender classes, the girls' classes were a dream. We did all kinds of amazing stuff with
yep,
them, but the boys were a challenge.
yep,
I needed a hook. And I thought, that's what I need. And I talked to my principal, and we looked how much the cost was. And he said, I got this. He bought the harmonicas, and he helped me arrange. My district had a program for artists in residence, and
yep,
the lady who did the workshop had told us about an artist a harmonica artist who lived about an hour and a half from us, and we arranged for him to come for an intercession class. And so I learned from him, as well. And I just continued to do that for 3 or 4 years. Um, I think I even used harmonicas as a part of my national boards. It was just fun. And the beautiful thing about there's lots of beautiful things
Yeah.
about harmonica. But,
Yeah.
uh, there's only blow and draw out and in. That's all you can do. And it's all pretty much tonic and dominant.
Yep.
So you can't really play, even if you're drawing in when you're supposed to be blowing out, it's not that dissonant. And 22 crazy fourth grade boys, and I shouldn't use that word, 22 lively fourth grade boys can play harmonicas all at the same time, and you don't get a headache like you do if they were playing recorder.
I, I've never, ever, ever heard of anyone playing harmonica or teaching kids, like a class full of kids, to play harmonica. I love it. I love it. I've never even thought
Oh,
of it.
it was so fun. And we started with just simple songs. We started with like mi, re, do songs.
Yep.
Uh, and he taught our artist in residence name was Charlie Story, and he taught us that it's a harmony instrument,
Yep.
harmonica, harmony.
Yeah.
And so while some people play by trying to focus on single holes
Yep.
and play a little bit, he said, no, just put your mouth over about three of them and play three at a time. You're getting harmony. The melody's in there.
Yep.
So we didn't fuss about getting exactly. We were getting the harmony. And that the kids enjoyed it.
Yep.
And yeah, I used some recorder songs and with the backing tracks that I had while we played, and they just had the best time. And we learned how to play vibrato and glissando and just fun stuff. That really is my fun thing. And I still enjoy playing harmonica.
As I said, I'm just flabbergasted that you harmonica with a bunch of boys. I think it's fantastic, but wow, I would have loved to have seen that. So, did you include those harmonica performances in your programs when you were doing them?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I take it they were really well received.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course they got, you know, they're pretty inexpensive
Yeah,
to start with. And so they got to take them home at the end of the year,
yeah.
and they were just thrilled with that. So I tried to make sure that they could play enough songs that they wouldn't drive their parents crazy. And they always got the speech at the end, if you want to practice, go in your room and shut the door. But when you got a song figured out, that's when you go tell your parents. Don't just be blowing and making noise. Your parents will throw it in the trash. So be careful about how you use that at home.
Oh dear. And that's like you just reminded me, my sister, when uh we had moved schools a couple of times and I started at this particular school in year 11 and 12. And so, but my sister was there, she's 3 years younger. And so she brought home a trombone. And my mum just went, no, take it back. She said, you're not playing the trombone. So pretty quickly, my sister was doing singing lessons. So so you got to
Songs
take your
have
hat
that
off.
power.
Oh, that's right. But this is the thing, like we can't do our job with and like I'm sure when you were learning your flute and your French horn yourself, like you've got to be able to make noise at home. And you hope that at some point that noise turns into music. And I mean, I say that to my kids all the time. All right, this first time we play it, it's probably going to sound like noise. Let's see if we can make it sound like music. And when we played it again. So yeah, yeah. So you've got to take hats off to parents that who actually let us do these things. So
Absolutely.
I think you've sort of talked about that. So I'm going to throw a curly one at you. So what is your favorite lesson or concept to teach and why? And not the harmonica, something different.
Something different.
Mm.
All right. So I wouldn't have said this a few years back, but um, I have started to take a liking to teaching kids to improvise.
Hmm.
Um, and I told you I had that level one of ORF training, and we do a little bit of improvisation, but that just always felt to me, and this is my problem, not
Yeah.
ORF problem. this is my problem. That just always felt like just dinking around. Like maybe I wasn't making musical decisions, maybe my students weren't making musical decisions, and I'm
Yep,
sure that me and my lack of experience with guiding them in that um, process.
yep,
But then I took my music learning theory, elementary general, level one, and that's where we started. And I learned some tricks and I guess I call them tricks, but they're not tricks, just some principles in the learning sequence. I learned more about the learning sequence and how we learn music and um and some simple ways. And I'm actually going to talk a teensy bit about this in my session
yep,
that we're going to talk about shortly. But um, some ways to that improvisation is just being different,
yep,
doing something different from the model.
yep,
And I once I that just that's something that clicked with me finally. That oh, you don't have to be the jazz recording artist
yep,
and be able to do all of this. You
yep,
just have to be different. And I started really working on trying to get my kids to be able to chant and sing patterns. First of all, chant and sing patterns in tune, but then to be able to do different patterns, let's have a musical conversation.
yep,
And so, and it was just short patterns that, maybe just 4-beat patterns or 3 or 4 tones, pitches in a pattern. And that just became I started to enjoy doing that. I used that too in several of my evaluation lessons um and got some good ratings on those because it was just different. Kids were making music on their own. That's a step towards teaching them to be independent
yep,
musicians, which I hadn't really been doing up to that point in my career. I've been more like, let me teach you this song, let me teach you these terms, let me teach you these,
yep,
some musical things. Um, but once I learned those little things about improvisation through my MLT training, I really enjoy teaching kids how to be different.
yeah. I love it. I love it. So, can you just explain, excuse me, because I know you mentioned it before, but what is MLT training for those people who may not know?
So let me start again. Music learning theory was
Yep.
developed by Dr. Edwin Gordon through many years of research, and through his books, he describes the learning. His books are called learning sequences in music.
Hmm.
It's like, how do we learn music? What's the process? What would be first? What would be second?
Yep.
And there are different stages, and how do we learn to audiate, which is to be able to hear and understand and music in our head.
Yep.
I think we might be able to hear and know what it is,
Yep.
understand the whole um, the meaning behind it. So be able to hear something and know that that's a tonic chord, hear something and know that
Yep.
that's the dominant chord, kind of a thing in your head, whether the music is present or
Yep.
audible or not. So learning sequence really changed how I taught. Um,
Hmm.
and I did find that I was still able to use the ORF process through the different stages of that learning sequence and use my ORF training, but that was very impactful in my career to take that. And I took several different levels then and
Yep.
was very blessed actually that he was hmm, I forgot what they called him, like something like a professor emeritus here at the University of South Carolina.
All right. Yep. Yep.
I think I have the wrong title, so I'm going to have to apologize for not knowing what that title was. But he was in attendance at those levels that I took, and he
Yep.
did the theory part. He was the one that did the lectures during those levels, so I got to
Wow.
study under him as well. So that was really, really good.
Yeah. And look, I think there's so many different ways to approach teaching that and teaching music especially that sometimes we also need to know what's going to work for us so that we can explain it. If that makes sense, I mean, you've talked a bit about ORF, but obviously the MLT training was really what made a difference for you as a teacher. So it's good to
I think
like,
it made a difference for me as a musician first.
right.
I think
Yep.
learning all of the, I knew about chords and I knew about chord uh, patterns and but no, learning the different tonalities and then how chords function,
Yep.
things really started clicking for me. Because
Yep.
you'll remember back when I was in college the first time, had only been a mediocre flute player and I had only been a serious student for 2 years. So some of that music theory in college the first time was a stretch for me.
Hmm.
So this really, I was much more ready.
Yep.
I was much more ready to learn, and it really clicked in my brain. So
Yeah. 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 And it said makes so much sense when we're ready to learn. And I think that's also for our kids. Like sometimes they're not ready to learn a concept that we are ready to teach. So, they're not always on the same page. What's one of your most memorable teaching moments that you'd like to share?
hmm, well, well, I already mentioned that some of the best ones were those moments in the classroom, and
Yep.
those are there. But um, I was very excited to have a group of my students, fourth and fifth graders, no less, that were able to be a part of the world's largest concert DVD.
Hmm.
So submitted a video. We learned the song. We got costumes. I had teachers helping me, and we got them on the stage and made a video and submitted that to the NAFME
Yep.
and um, and we were selected as one of the groups on that DVD, and that was just so exciting to have us have and they did so well, and
Yeah.
looking at the whole DVD and comparing all the you don't compare, but you compare knowing that my group was right there in the middle and was of equal. All those teachers were impressed with their kids,
Yeah.
and my group didn't stand out as too good or too bad or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know we're right there with them, and
Yeah.
that was very, very satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's just those little moments, isn't it? That and those opportunities, I think we as music teachers, we give our kids different sort of opportunities to shine where they might not shine in the classroom for other ways, but they certainly get to shine with us in a very different light.
I had another group. I had another group that I, music teachers, we often have more than one building. So when I first came to Columbia, I taught at an elementary school for a few days a week, and I taught at it was a special education center for students who were not functioning. They had a certain classification in the special ed
Yep.
system where they didn't function in the regular classroom, so they needed a self-contained setting. So
Yep.
they had a special school, and they had specialized teachers and
Yep.
lots of support staff. There was lots of support there. So I taught music there, and it was middle school, high school. And I was going, we had just moved here. I wanted elementary. I got only a half-time elementary job, and I thought, oh, I need to help support my family. How am I going to
Yep.
do this? And this job came open. I thought, oh, it's middle school, high school. I don't know. I was just coming from middle school, high school. I was trying to get out of
Yep.
that, but
Yep.
I need this job. So let me, and they said, well, we have a steel drum band. I went, oh, steel drums were like on my bucket list of something I always wanted to learn how to play. I just love the sound of steel drums. I
Yep.
didn't know how to play. But I said, okay, I'll take this job. And there was somebody at the university who they had a steel drum band at the university, and they sent a student to give me a crash course in how to take care of those drums and teach them. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I did some auditions for the kids to be in this class, and um, and I taught. So, like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about this, but I decided, okay, I saw some music in the closet. It was way too hard. I
All
knew these
right.
kids music. I knew they couldn't read, so why
Yeah.
am I going to even bring this out? And it was more complicated than I would should be teaching by rote.
Yep. Yep.
So I pulled out some Orff stuff from my elementary books, and I taught them. The first song I taught them was Scotland's Burning.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
and I we divided into the lead pan played Scotland's Burning, Scotland's Burning. Then the
Yeah.
next one, or we built it up from the
Yep.
bottom.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, each part of that round was a
Yep.
different group, low, middle, the two in
Yep.
the middle, and we had four sections. And then we played it, just added in you bass start, and then we added in that, and then we added in, then we added in the lead, and then we fade out, fade out, fade out, fade
Yep.
out.
Yep.
Well, there was that school as a part of their curriculum had assemblies I think it was every month.
Right.
And the next assembly was like in 2 weeks. And they said, "Can the steel drum band play?" And I went, "Okay." So we played Scotland's Burning and one other song which I can't remember, but it was also
Yeah.
from one of the elementary Orff books. I didn't tell those kids that.
No, no.
I didn't tell those kids that, but we played that, and my principal came to me, um, and she said, "How did you do that?" What? Because I'm thinking we did, and they did great. They were,
Yeah.
it was great. It all worked out just fine. And they were successful. They were feeling good about themselves. But I knew it was elementary.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was any how did you do that about it. I was
Yeah.
not. And she said that last music teacher we had, they couldn't play for months. And here we'd only been
Um,
for 2 weeks. So
right.
that was that was another little check mark for, yeah, this ORF process, there's something to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it really worked to give them some success. And we
Yes.
started there and ended up being invited. The second year I was there, we were invited to play for the district volunteer banquet, which is a big, huge, huge, huge banquet with TV personalities being the MC and what
Wow.
have you. Um, so we were supposed to play, it was a breakfast actually, and we were supposed to play the music while they were eating. So we had to play 45 minutes worth of music, and
Wow.
we got compliments for that. But that the first compliment was really almost the best. How did you do that?
Yes. Yeah.
So
And, as I said, sometimes we sort of do take for granted that we, again, pick kids up where they are and start them where they are. And I love that, I always teach tuned percussion, tuned and untuned percussion beginning of the year with year seven. Um, and it's the same reason. It gives them some success, even if they can only keep the beat because most of our kids don't get music in years, kindy to year six. So I'm really, I suppose, in a way, my kids might be older, but I'm teaching them from the very, very beginning. So it's just about giving them some success before I go on to that ukulele, which is, I can't do that while I'm humming that ukulele. We've just finished uke. We're on to guitars next term. Okay, so Sally, I'm going to ask you five quick questions. And then we'll talk about the upcoming virtual summit, which is really, really soon. So, okay, so these are just quick questions. What's your favorite go-to restaurant?
so um well, I have a couple of fancy ones, but I'm going to just say we have this new place around here called Kairos Mediterranean.
Mm,
And it's got, Mediterranean, but you can have a pita or a bowl.
yep,
And maybe folks might be familiar with Chipotle, how you go to Chipotle and and you say, I want this and this and this
yep,
and this. But well, this is Mediterranean, but you get your pita or your bowl and you say, I want this and this and that,
yep.
so you can kind of build it up the way you want it. And it's pretty healthy food, and it's not expensive. And we go there quite frequently.
Oh, sounds nice. I think I need to find one of those. What are you currently binge watching?
Ooh, we don't watch a whole lot of TV, but you know what? We just finished watching season 4 of The Chosen.
Oh,
Um, we 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 waited till it was all out, and we just kind of binge watched that over the last weekend. So that was good.
right.
We do like I do like to watch like the various different Star Trek series, and I'm more or Doctor Who. We've been watching some old Doctor Who as well, but
Yep,
have some eclectic taste there. But
very much so. What's a book you're currently reading?
oh, that's a good question too. All right. Well, um, it's also a Christian book.
Yep.
Um, it's a book called, oh, what's it called? It's about the end times.
Okay.
End times, the end of the age or the end times. It's by Christian Widener. It's real
Okay.
interesting. You can download it from his website for free. So
Oh,
he's got
okay.
some interesting theories.
All
Anyway,
right. I might have to look at that one. I listen to books. I don't necessarily read them. I'm naughty. It's your summer holidays. Well, so what's your perfect day?
a perfect day. Well, I retired a couple of years ago, so I've been having quite a lot of those perfect days. And people said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to sleep until I want to get up. I'm not setting an alarm. I'm going to drink coffee for 2 hours.
Yep.
I'm going to go to the Y. So I go to the Y and exercise. We walk and do hit the weight room for a little bit. Come home, rest, take a shower, eat, and then just do binge watch something in the evening, I guess. So that's that's a pretty good day. I mean, usually I do spend during the weekdays, I do spend some time working on my TPT stuff, but
Yep. Yep. Now that sounds like a pretty good day to me, don't you worry. What's your favorite snack?
favorite snack. So here lately I've been we found some almond crackers that are I mean almond flour. They're not
Yep.
wheat flour.
Yep.
Almond flour crackers and and cheese. Or else I'll just have some regular roasted almonds and raisins and cheese to kind of make my own trail mix.
Yum. Sounds good. I love nuts. Almonds, cashews, macadamias, Brazil nuts. All the expensive ones. Uh,
Pistachios, would you put those in there too? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, pistachios. Yeah, I forgot that. But they're just a pain. You've got to crack them. So yeah, anyway. Um, we'll talk about the conference now. So can you give us an overview of what your session will cover? So you sort of touched on it a little bit, but yeah, so you want to talk about what you're doing in your session, please?
So my session is jazzing up elementary music education, unlocking essential skills. And the general objective is that we can infuse a little bit of jazz, but we can teach skills that we already have in our scope and sequence.
Yep.
That we can use jazz as a vehicle to teach those skills. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how to build a unit, how to build a jazz unit if you want to do a self-contained unit, but I'm also going to go into detail with some of the skills that you might even just as you're teaching those skills in other units, you might be able to put some jazz activities mixed in with other units as well. So,
That sounds good. I can't wait. I'm just about finished my jazz unit with my year 10 kids, so which was interesting. They've really enjoyed it. It's been good. So why did you choose this topic for your session?
well, it, in some ways, it started way back at Mustang High School. We that was a tiny school, and we didn't have a super great concert band, but we had a state champion jazz band, and there were
Right.
some of those high school players were amazing musicians and amazing at improvising. And I tried it once and I was woefully unsuccessful, so I just kind of moved on from that. But that started they were so good that kind of started my love of jazz there. My husband also is a music lover, and we have lots of music and jazz is among there. So I'm kind of been a jazz lover for a long time. And I think the thing that started me doing these units was my art teacher and I were trying to develop some interdisciplinary units and tie in with social studies. And we did a different thing for every grade level. We looked at their standards. And the thing that we both latched onto for fifth grade was the Harlem Renaissance. That they studied that in their social studies curriculum, and she had some artists that were on her required art list, the things she was supposed to cover at some point. And so I said, well, Harlem Renaissance, there's all kinds of music that's fun. um, so that's something. So I started developing units at that point in time. That was a part of our evaluation. So, the first one that we developed was my Harlem Renaissance unit. And once we did that, it kind of grew from there. And those fifth graders would really eat it up. You would think that they as many behavior problems as I had out of fourth and fifth grade. But those fifth graders really, they got into watching those old videos and
Yep.
discussing it, and well you did, and learning about, the racial tension
Mm-hmm.
was a challenge to discuss at times, but
Yep.
they ended up, after we set the ground rules for how we're going to discuss this, we had some really good discussions,
Yep.
and I feel like they got something out of it. So I just continued. And so I want to be able to kind of share how I develop those units with other people,
Yep.
and maybe they'll try it too.
Yeah, I love everything about what you just said. It's just because again, music is not music. We are such a broad, like we pull things from everywhere because music is so influenced by everything that's going on around them. So that yeah, I just love everything about that. So how do you think your session will benefit the music educators who want to watch your session?
Oh, well, I think I just maybe said that a little bit, that I want to teach you how to build a unit, the things that I put into a unit that I found successful. And I also will have a free resource that I'm going to share with you, that might get you started.
Yep.
So I think that they could benefit, where they would know what to, the concept of how to put together a unit that might be receptive received well by their students.
Yeah. And look, again, every school and every context is different. And you like each music teacher knows their kids and knows what's going to work for your kids. So, we've already talked about that with harmonica and the boys and, and all those things. So I love it. I can't wait to actually see what you've done. So my cat has just decided to come in. He normally doesn't. He's just being annoying. He opened the door. I thought I had it closed. But anyway, um, where can people find you on in social media to get more about you?
Well, I'm under Sally Sea of Songs on Facebook. You can search Sally Sea of Songs, and on Instagram it had to be a shorter name, so it's just Sally Songs. So on Instagram you can find me at Sally Songs.
Wonderful. And you also have a TPT store, Teachers Pay Teacher store. And what's it called?
That's called Sally Sea of Songs.
And
And I
what's
also
it?
have
Sorry,
Sally
go
Sea
on.
of Songs. And I also have a website, which is sallyseaofsongs.com.
Awesome. And what can people find there when they go to your store or your website?
On my website, I have lots of, I've been trying, especially since I've retired, I've kind of trying to get a little bit more content out there, but trying to write some things like blog posts that will help teachers with different aspects of their teaching. There's a lot of back to school things, how some tips for learning names,
Yep.
and and name games and different organizational things there. And then I just have a wide variety, because we all teach a lot of things. We may have things that we like to teach, but we all have to teach it all. So
Yeah.
uh, trying to trying to get some of that stuff and put it in print, so that it might benefit some others.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like there's so much there for teachers who are looking for any bit of help. Please go and see, as I said, if you're looking for resources to use in your classroom, go to Teachers Pay Teachers. And if you're looking for some ideas on things to do in your classroom, please go to the website. Well, Sally, it's been wonderful speaking to you today. I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much.